Today in Math 7 we are working with measures of central tendency, which is lesson 4-4 from our textbook. The mastery objective for today was that students will be able to identify and analyze the mean, median, and mode. Now, although many students have some type of background with the measures of central tendency from their studies last year in Math A, we want to go ahead and get started off by reviewing those same concepts. Now, the measures of central tendency look to find the average of the data set. So again, the mean, median, and the mode are all ways of identifying the central tendency or the average of the data. When we examine the word mean, the definition is the mean of a set of data is the sum of the data divided by the number of pieces of the data. So again, you would add up all the numbers within the data set and then divide by the total numbers that were within that data set. The median of a set of data is the number in the middle when the data are arranged in order. Now those can be arranged from least to greatest or greatest to least. When there is an odd set of numbers within the data set, the middle number when ordered is your median. However, when there are an even set within the data set, you need to take the two middle numbers and the median is their mean. Now the last of the measures of central tendency that we'll be focusing in on is the mode. The mode of a set of data is the number or items that appear most often. So let's take a look at some finer examples of mean, median, and mode. In order to go ahead and find the mean, what we need to go ahead and do is follow several steps. So to find the mean of this given data set, let's find step number 1. First thing is we want to go ahead and add up all the numbers within the data set. So we would take each number and add them together to get our total of 148. Step number 2 is we would go ahead and divide the sum of those numbers by the total numbers within the data set. Since there are 8 numbers within the data set, we would go ahead and divide 148 by 8. Step number 3 is to complete the calculation, which 148 divided by 8 gives us 18.5. So for this given data set, our mean is 18.5. In order to find the median, again, we need to go ahead and follow a set of procedures. Step number 1 is we need to reorder the numbers within the data set. So in this case, I chose to use least to greatest in my ordering. Step number 2 is we want to find the middle number within the data set. Since this is an even set of numbers within the data set, we have 2 middle numbers. So what we need to do is find the mean of those 2 numbers. And when we find those 2 numbers, 22 plus 22 divided by 2, we're going to always end back with that same number of 22. So for this one, we're looking at the median for the set of data is 22. Now the mode is the piece of data that appears most often. So looking at the same data set, step number 1 is to go ahead and identify all the numbers that repeat themselves. And then once we have done that, we then try to identify, okay, well, which ones have repeated themselves most often. And in this case, we have 4, 22, and 24 for this data set are all the modes because each of them repeat themselves twice. So as a result, you have multiple modes for this particular given data set. However, at times, your mode may be none. That would be if none of the numbers within the data set repeat themselves. It is okay. You do not list it as 0 if there is no mode, because 0 would represent the mode being the value of 0, which is actually the absence of value. So in reviewing all 3 of these concepts of mean, median, and mode, they are all 3 different ways of identifying the average and describing the average for a given data set.